Hi, my name is Navion.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Vanessa.
And we're going to dissect a lamprey, specifically Petromyzon marinus.
We're going to observe the exterior before actually making the dissection. So far what we can see is the lamprey has a mouth. This is the mouth. The circular funnel shape is the mouth. Right here on the interior part, that's going to be its teeth. It's going to use its mouth to latch onto prey, and it feeds off of blood and the tissue fluid.
You can notice it's got kind of like little hook teeth. That's how it would latch onto the prey.
And it also has a tongue. It's really hard to see, but there are teeth on that as well.
As discussed previously, lamprey will attach themselves to other fish in order to feed from them. A lamprey uses several rows of teeth to latch onto another fish, and the teeth on its tongue to cut into the body. So here you can see a lamprey latching onto, in this example, a paddlefish. This can leave some pretty nasty scars, but typically does not kill the bigger fish.
Further past the mouth, we can see there's a small opening right here. This would be the nostril. That's going to be how it smells. It has an olfactory sac just underneath to help it smell. Right. In regards to sensory organs, we have the nose, which we talked about earlier. This is the nostril. Looking at it internally, we can see that the olfactory sac is right here. It's going to allow the organism to smell. Here it's actually a little bit hard to see, but this light spot right here on this one side, as well as the other side here, those are where its eyes would be. Those are going to help it detect movement in the water. The eyes have a lens with a pigmented or retinal layer. This is responsible for detecting water movement.
Also, we can see the gill slits on the outside.
They're going to have 7 external gill slits, and then they also have internal gill slits as well. Their external gill slits are going to be both on the left and right side of the animal. We have the gills here. These are the internal gills. They're here on this side and this side because it's split into 2. Earlier we talked about the external gill slits, which are used for feeding. The internal gills, however, are used for other functions. So, as we mentioned earlier, the lamprey has external gill slits, which allow it to breathe a little differently while it's feeding. It's going to pump respiratory water in and out of those gill slits so that it can breathe through gaseous exchange. It's a little different when it's not feeding, however. It's got an internal gill set. So here we can see it on the right side, and then here as well. So this is just 2 halves, but together this would make the whole internal gill set. So it would breathe a little differently, just like your average fish, where water would flow into the mouth through a respiratory tube and then out through the gills. Alright, so what we're looking at right now is the heart. This is 1 half, this is the other half. The heart has 4 chambers, and it's part of the respiratory system.
The first chamber of the heart is the sinus venosus. Oxygenated blood moves from here to the atrium, then to the ventricle, and finally to the conus arteriosus. From here, oxygenated blood is dispersed throughout the body.
To continue, we're going to look at the skin of the animal. It has a dark backside, and it has a lighter underbelly. This is called counter shading. If we continue to look at the underside of it and move further along to the, more so to the end of the animal, we can see there's another opening. Well, actually it's 2 openings. There's a small opening that's going to be the anus, and then there's the slightly bigger opening that's going to be the cloaca. The anus's function is so that the animal can expel fecal matter The cloaca is going to expel waste through urine, and it's also going to allow the animal to express gametes. We have located the testes, which is a sac just located slightly underneath the liver, seen here, and on the other half here. On the liver, there's a green material. We're not sure if that may be the gallbladder. It's a little hard to locate at the moment.
Yeah, if not that, it might be some of that little squiggly mess beneath it, but it's hard to tell. Also, kind of hard to tell where the testes would connect to the cloaca at the end.
There would typically be a tube that runs from here, which this is what we think is the testes. So the tube goes along here, right? And it's going to go towards the end where the cloaca would be. This tube is meant to expel gametes through the cloaca. That's its partial function. The other function for it is to pass waste and urine.
Okay, so this is the intestines. And this right here is the liver. This blob right here is the kidney. And we believe this little tube right here is the esophagus.
And that would be where the ingested food and nutrients would go through.
We'd also like to point out that the animal does not have a stomach, and the reason for this is because it doesn't actually store food.
It gets the nutrients directly from the host, so the digestion process isn't as important.
This is just past the nose. This is going to be where the brain is located here, this white material here, and it's going to lead to the spinal cord. The spinal cord connects to the brain.
Okay, so going over the nervous system a little bit. The brain, we think, is right around up there, and usually you would see that connecting to the spinal cord, which we can see along there and kind of down here on this other one too. Right above that here is the notochord. Interesting thing to note is that all vertebrates have a notochord in embryonic development, but most lose it when they become adults. Lamprey don't. Lamprey have notochords as adults. Okay, we are going to go into a little bit further detail on the brain. This is a model of a lamprey larva brain. This white part down here is the medulla oblongata, which controls the body's respiration and circulation. Next, we've got this small pink part. That's called the cerebellum, and that is in control of the body's coordination and balance. Obviously, it's not too well developed on the lamprey. These blue lumps are the optic lobes, and as the name might imply, those are in control of the body's vision. Since they're relatively large compared to the rest of the brain, you can imagine that the lamprey should have no trouble seeing. Moving on to these yellow bulbous parts, the bottom section of those would be the cerebrum, which is the body's cognitive control center, and the upper portion would be the olfactory bulbs and olfactory tracts, which are responsible for detecting smell and processing it.